My stepmother sold my father's house. But she didn't know I was the one holding the deed. As I dialed the number, the familiar tune replaced by a steady ringing, a memory of my father's last warning echoed in my mind, sharp and clear, as if he were right there beside me. My father had warned me about Isabel, but his most terrifying warning was never spoken aloud. It was in the tremor of his hand, the exhaustion in his eyes, the way he looked at his own home, as if it were a fortress he was desperate to secure before his time ran out. I was transported back to a chilly autumn evening, a few months before he passed. He'd called me into his study, the room thick with the scent of old leather and wood smoke. Isabel was out for the evening, one of her many social engagements that seemed to multiply as his health declined. His voice was a mere whisper, thin and reedy, but his gaze was intense, burning with an urgency that defied his failing body. Clara, he'd said, pushing a crisp business card across the polished surface of his desk. The name was embossed in simple, strong letters, James Albright, attorney at law. When the time comes, he'd rasped his fingers, brushing mine as I took the card. Trust James Albright. And whatever you do, don't trust Isabel's tears. They are her greatest performance. The implication hung heavy in the air between us, a silent acknowledgement of the danger he couldn't bring himself to name. I'd wanted to ask more, to demand an explanation, but the sheer effort of speaking had drained him, and a part of me foolishly dismissed it as a sick man's paranoia. A mistake I now understood with chilling clarity. She's walked right into the trap, Clara. Mr. Albright's voice, warm and steady, pulled me from the memory and back to the present. Everything is going exactly according to your father's plan. A wave of relief washed over me, so potent it almost buckled my knees. The smug satisfaction in Isabel's voice now seemed pathetic, a fool's triumph. I remembered sitting in Mr. Albright's office just days after the funeral, the air stale with grief and unspoken questions. The world felt gray and unsteady then, but Mr. Albright had been an anchor. He'd leaned forward, his expression kind but serious, and laid out the brilliant, heartbreaking foresight of my father's secret plan. Your father was a very smart man, Clara, he had explained, folding his hands on his desk. He saw this coming. Years ago, long before his health took a turn, he established an irrevocable trust. A trust I had asked the legal term, feeling alien on my tongue. How could he do that without her knowing? Mr. Albright smiled faintly. He did it before he even met her. He called it his legacy insurance, a way to protect the heart of his life's work, which was always you and this house. He was always 10 steps ahead. The words sounded foreign, but their meaning was crystal clear. He transferred ownership of the house, the property, everything into this trust. It's a legal fortress. And he named you as the sole beneficiary. I had stared at him, trying to process the scale of what he was saying. So, Isabel. As his wife, she is entitled to certain parts of his estate, Mr. Albright confirmed gently. But not the house. The house was never technically his to be passed on after his death. It was already yours. Her claim as his widow is meaningless in this specific matter. She has absolutely no legal right to sell it. He'd let that sink in. My father hadn't just left me a house. He had built a shield around me, a legacy of protection forged from love, and a deep, painful mistrust of the woman he had married. He had seen the predator beneath the polished veneer and had acted to save the one thing he knew she would come for. He had protected his legacy by ensuring it was mine all along. Now, standing in the sunlit kitchen, I felt that shield around me. It's an incredible feeling, isn't it? To realize someone loved you so much they fought for you, even after they were gone. I walked through the rooms, my fingers tracing the hand-carved banister he had spent a summer perfecting, the smooth, cool glass of the windows he'd chosen. This wasn't just wood and plaster. It was the physical manifestation of his love. Each floorboard held the echo of his footsteps, each wall a story. My resolve hardened with every memory. She thought this was her house to sell. She was about to find out how wrong she was. Just then, my phone buzzed, a sharp, insistent vibration against the granite countertop. I glanced down. A new text message. From Isabel. I'm on my way over. We need to talk. I didn't have to wait long. The buzz of the text message still seemed to hang in the air when the squeal of tires on gravel shattered the afternoon quiet. When Isabel's silver Mercedes screeched into the driveway, I didn't see a grieving stepmother. I saw a cornered wolf. The car door slammed with a crack that echoed through the garden, and the furious staccato click of her designer heels on the stone path was a drumbeat announcing war. I remained kneeling by my father's prize-winning roses, the scent of the blooms a stark contrast to the rage rolling off her in waves. She stormed towards me, her face a mask of crimson fury, a crumpled letter clutched in her white-knuckled fist. The carefully polished facade I'd seen for years was gone, replaced by something raw and ugly. "You!" she shrieked, thrusting the letter at my face. "What did you do?" I looked from her contorted expression to the official-looking letterhead on the paper, then back to her eyes. I took a deliberate, slow breath and calmly snipped a withered leaf from a rose stem before rising to my feet, brushing the dirt from my jeans. "I'm not sure what you mean, Isabel. Don't play dumb with me, you conniving little witch." Her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "The buyers. Their lawyer sent this. The sale is void. Something about a trust. You plotted this behind my back." I met her gaze, my own calm a deliberate counterpoint to her hysteria. The rose garden, my father's sanctuary, seemed to lend me its strength. "No," I corrected, my voice soft but firm. "I didn't plot anything. Dad did. I'm just following his wishes." She let out a harsh, disbelieving laugh. Your father would never do this to me. This is a mistake. He loved me. He trusted me." I took a step closer, the sweet scent of the roses grounding me. "He did exactly this to protect me and to protect this house. He saw through you, Isabel. He knew what you would try to do the moment he was gone." She flinched, a barely perceptible tremor, but I saw it. Her expensive heels sank slightly into the soft soil, her balance momentarily faltering. "That's impossible," she spat, but the conviction was already draining from her voice. "Is it?" I tilted my head. "Or did he just let you think he trusted you?" The color drained from her face as the implication of my words sank in. Her frantic anger was being replaced by a dawning, chilling horror. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment the foundations of her deceit began to crumble. I pressed my advantage, each word measured and quiet. "Dad didn't just leave me the house, Isabel. He told me everything." Her eyes widened, the question clear within them. "Everything?" "Oh yes," I continued, my voice barely above a whisper. "He told me about the prenuptial agreement you refused to sign, demanding full access. He told me about the quiet withdrawals from his accounts when you thought he was too sick to notice. He even told me about the friends you used to meet for lunch while he was in the hospital, the ones whose names always seemed to make you nervous when he asked about them." Her breath hitched. She was no longer looking at me, but through me, her mind clearly racing back, replaying years of her life under a horrifying new light. The facade didn't just crack, it shattered into a million pieces. He knew everything. The realization was written all over her face, a grotesque mixture of shock and terror. He knew," she whispered the words barely audible. "He knew," I confirmed. "He waited, he watched, and he planned, like father, like daughter." For the first time since I'd known her, Isabel was speechless. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. That was when I delivered the final blow. I slowly pulled my phone from my pocket, holding it up so she could see the screen where a recording app was actively capturing our conversation. "This entire conversation, it's being recorded," I said, my tone almost conversational. "Should I add it to the file Mr. Albright is building on your fraudulent activities? I'm sure the authorities would find it very illuminating." Her gaze darted to the phone and pure animal panic flashed in her eyes. "You wouldn't," she hissed. I smiled, a cold, hard smile that was all my father's quiet strength. "Try me." She took a clumsy step back, her heel catching in the grass. "This isn't over," she threatened, but her voice was hollow, devoid of its earlier venom. "Oh, it is," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. "It is over. You will leave this house, you will leave me alone, and you will leave my father's memory alone. If you try anything else, I promise you everything comes out. The affairs, the money, all of it." Her eyes searched mine, looking for a bluff, for any sign of weakness. She found none. With a final guttural sound of pure hatred, she spat, "Fine. Keep your little victory." She turned and stormed back to her car, her stride no longer confident but clumsy with haste. As she yanked the car door open, the crumpled letter slipped from her trembling hand, fluttering to the ground like a white flag of surrender. She sped away, leaving a trail of dust and the scent of defeat in the air. I walked over and picked up the paper. The legal jargon was dense, but its message was simple. Her scheme had failed. She had lost. But as I stood there, a new unsettling thought began to form in my mind. She had tried to steal his house and his money. But was that all? Or was there a darker secret my father had yet to reveal? The victory suddenly felt incomplete, overshadowed by a chilling sense of foreboding that drew me back towards the house, towards his study. I thought I had won. I thought the confrontation in the rose garden was the final act, the satisfying conclusion to a painful drama. But as I stood in the quiet of the house, the crumpled letter from Isabel's failed conquest in my hand, a chilling unease settled over me. The victory felt hollow, the silence of the house too deep. It wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence of a story unfinished. My father's voice echoed in my head, not his words, but the warning in his eyes. It was a pull I couldn't ignore, a thread I had to follow. It led me, as it always did, back to his study. The room, once a sanctuary of warmth and memories, now felt like a vault holding a secret I was suddenly terrified to uncover. I stood for a moment, letting the familiar scent of old books and his faint, lingering scent of pipe tobacco wash over me. Then, with a resolve I didn't know I possessed, I began to search. Not frantically, but with a strange, guided purpose. I ran my hands over the worn spines of his favorite novels, opened drawers filled with old maps and half-finished sketches. It was in the bottom drawer of his heavy oak desk, tucked beneath a stack of his university yearbooks, that my fingers brushed against a thick, sealed envelope. My name, Clara, was written on the front in his familiar, elegant scroll. My breath caught in my throat. I turned it over. The date scrawled in the corner sent a tremor of ice through my veins. It was dated just 3 days before his death. With trembling hands, I tore it open. His words, his voice rose from the page. My dearest Clara, if you are reading this, it means Isabel has made her move and our plan has worked. It means you stood strong and the house is safe. I am so proud of the woman you have become. But I must apologize my love for the secrets I had to keep. There is a reason for the trust, a reason that goes far beyond protecting property. A reason I couldn't tell you while I was alive. She watched me too closely, and I needed her to believe she was winning. My heart hammered against my ribs. About a year into our marriage, I began to fall ill. It started with dizzy spells, a profound weakness that the doctors couldn't explain. At first, I thought it was just age stress, but it was more than that. It felt unnatural. James Mr. Albright became suspicious. He discreetly arranged for some tests, had the contents of my daily teapot analyzed. Clara, my darling girl, they found something in my tea. Traces of a substance, tasteless and slow-acting but deliberate. My illness wasn't natural. A raw, guttural sob escaped my lips. The letter shook in my hands. Rage and a grief so profound it felt like a physical blow collided within me. She hadn't just schemed to steal his house. She had been stealing his life drop by drop, day by day. I had a choice, the letter continued. To confront her and cause a catastrophic scene, or to play along. To let her think I was fading oblivious while I worked with James to build a fortress around you. Securing the house wasn't just about money. It was about keeping you safe, about ensuring you had the high ground when the time came. Forgive me for seeming so distant in those last months. Every moment of feigned weakness, every time I let her fuss over me with that damnable tea, it was an act. It was all to protect you. There is one final piece to this puzzle. It is my final gift to you and my final curse upon her. Check the fireplace, my love. Behind the loose brick, third from the left. I didn't even realize I had crossed the room until my fingers were on the familiar stone of the fireplace, still warm from the afternoon sun. Third from the left. My heart pounded in my ears as I found a brick that looked identical to the others. It came free easily in my hand, revealing a small dark cavity within. And inside that cavity, there was a small black USB drive and a single folded scrap of paper. On it, my father had written 4 final words. Show this when you're ready. My pulse raced. I stumbled to his desk, my hands shaking so violently I could barely plug the drive into my laptop. A single folder appeared on the screen. I clicked it open. Video files. grainy, time-stamped footage from a hidden camera Dad must have installed. The first clip loaded. It was the kitchen. Isabel was there, humming to herself as she prepared a tray. She poured hot water into my father's favorite teapot, and then, with a casual glance over her shoulder, she took a small vial from her pocket and tipped a fine white powder into the steaming brew. She stirred it, her expression placid, almost bored. Another clip showed her on the phone in the garden laughing. "Don't worry," she was saying to someone I didn't recognize. "It won't be long now, and the house's value will be more than enough for both of us after he's gone." Each clip was a dagger to my heart, proof, irrefutable, soul-destroying proof of her betrayal. The sheer, cold-blooded evil of it stole the air from my lungs. This wasn't just greed. This was murder in slow motion. My composure, the calm strength I had wielded like a shield, shattered. I snatched my phone, my vision blurred by tears of rage, and dialed. Mr. Albright answered on the first ring. "James," I choked out my voice, a broken, ragged thing I barely recognized. "James, I found it. I found Dad's letter and the USB drive with the videos." There was a moment of heavy silence on the other end of the line, the kind of silence that holds a world of understanding. Then his voice, low and filled with an immense, terrible gravity, asked the question that would decide everything. "So what do we do next, Clara?" I stared at the phone, Mr. Albright's momentous question hanging in the air between us, heavy with the weight of justice and revenge. "So what do we do next, Clara?" For a week that question was my shadow. The USB drive with its damning evidence felt like a burning coal in my hand. It was the key to Isabel's utter destruction, a path to legal retribution that she so richly deserved. Every fiber of my being screamed for justice, for the world to know the monster she was. But every time I pictured the circus of a trial, the flashing cameras, my father's private pain laid bare for public consumption, his memory twisted into a lurid headline, a quiet, steady voice within me, a voice that sounded remarkably like his urged caution. A week later, I received her surrender letter. It wasn't the police who defeated her. It was my silence. The package arrived by courier, a thick manila envelope from an unfamiliar law firm. Inside, nestled amongst pages of crisp, formal documents relinquishing any and all claims to my father's estate, was a single sheet of hotel stationery. Isabel's handwriting, usually so sharp and elegant, was a jagged, panicked scrawl. "You win. I'm leaving the state. Keep what you know to yourself." That was all. No apology, no remorse. Just fear. I knew instantly what had happened. In her terror after our confrontation, she must have torn the house apart, searching for what else I might know. She must have found the tiny, discreet cameras my father had installed. She didn't know for certain what was on the USB drive, but she knew it existed. And the threat of that unknown, the dread of what the silent guardian behind the fireplace brick held, was more powerful than any police warrant. My father's final brilliant move wasn't in the evidence itself, but in the fear of its existence. It was a silent victory, a checkmate delivered from beyond the grave. That afternoon, I called Mr. Albright. "I'm not going to the police," I told him, my voice clear and steady for the first time in days. "I have her full surrender. She's gone." He was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure, Clara, after what she did?" "I'm sure," I said, looking out the window at the rose garden. "My father's legacy isn't about revenge, James. It's about this house, this peace. His plan was always about protection, not destruction. Dragging his memory through a trial, that's not the victory he would have wanted." In the days that followed, a quiet transformation began. The house, which had felt heavy with secrets and grief, seemed to take a deep breath. I spent my evenings restoring what Isabel had tried to erase, healing the house, and in turn, healing myself. I repainted the living room walls in my father's favorite soft blue, the scent of fresh paint chasing away the last of her cloying perfume. I retrieved his old records from storage, and the sound of his favorite jazz filled the halls once more. The house was no longer just a structure. It was a living testament to his love, and I was its devoted guardian. My time was spent mostly in the garden, kneeling in the soft earth among the roses, their roots stretching deep and unseen beneath the surface. I finally understood the profound depth of my father's lesson. I had thought strength was a shout, a confrontation, a battle won with overwhelming force. But he had taught me something wiser. He had taught me the strength of silent roots. Patience and strategy were his weapons. He had watched, waited, and allowed Isabel's own greed and arrogance to lead her into a trap of her own making. He showed me that true power doesn't always need to be displayed. Sometimes it's the quiet, enduring strength, the one that grows in silence until it's needed, that is the most formidable of all. One evening, as the sun set, casting long golden shafts of light through the stained glass windows, I pruned a thorny stem, the sharp scent of roses filling the air. The USB drive remained tucked away behind the fireplace brick, its purpose served without ever being deployed. It was a silent guardian, a reminder of a battle won not with a bang, but with a whisper. Isabel's departure was proof enough of its power. The house stood as it always had a legacy preserved. It was more than a home. It was the story of my father's unshakable belief in me. I walked through its creaking halls, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known since before he was gone. In the garden under a sky streaked with purple and pink, I looked at the roses, their petals unfurling in perfect defiant beauty. They were my father's heart, and now they were mine. I clipped a single perfect red rose and brought it inside, placing it in a small vase on his desk. I whispered into the quiet of the room, the words hanging in the air like a promise finally fulfilled. "We did it, Dad.